that are taking place every Saturday. They started last Saturday with an introduction to Lam Rim of Tibet House. And today we are going to do Precious Human Rebirth by Venerable Tenzin Legtsokl of Seraje Monastery. Before starting off, I would like to one more time tell you that this program is being hosted by Tibet House Delhi and Narigatsali in Guwahati. I suppose all of you are quite familiar with us by now, so I will not waste much time in introducing us. Just again, one more time, I would like to remind, because some people have been getting in touch with me as well, because they're interested in joining the Nalanda diploma course, which begins in the month of July, and they have also written apparently to Tibet House. So for those who do not have much of an idea, these two are courses that have been Nalanda diploma course and master's course was started by Tibet House as part of trying to fulfill the wishes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And they teach the ancient Nalanda sciences in the courses, along with giving teachings on meditation. So if anybody else is interested, they can write to Tibet House about that. Now, regarding Venerable Legtsokl, I'm very thankful he is here with us, especially at very short notice. We organized this whole thing. Venerable Legtsokl is studying at the Seraje Monastery. He's now in his 18th year of studies, of Geshe studies, and is currently pursuing Abhidharma. He's a very wonderful teacher, very humble person, down to earth, very cooperative, is building up a nice following of followers as well across India and the globe. And we wish him all the best in doing his Geshe studies. And just before handing over the stage to him, I would like to request the Tenzin Domala program coordinator of Tibet House to say a few things that she would like to say. Thank you.
Just a little. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Bhaskala. And hello, everyone. And I, on behalf of Tibet House, would like to welcome you all for joining the second session of Precious Human Rebirth of Lam Rim Teaching Program. And thank you again, Legtsokl, for accepting our request in a short period of time. And as Bhaskala already mentioned, that I'm Tenzin Doma. I'm program coordinator of Tibet House. And those of you who are not familiar with our institution, I would like to give a brief introduction about our institution. Tibet House is a culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which was founded in 1965 by His Holiness. The main purpose is to preserve and disseminate the unique cultural heritage of Tibet and provide a center for Tibetan and studies. So we regularly organizes lectures, conferences, exhibition, film screenings, and festivities throughout the year. This program is mainly focused on Indian, Tibetan, and Nalanda Buddhist history, science, religion, philosophy, art, literature, and culture where it witnesses to the vital and evolving heritage of Tibetan people. So with taking this opportunity, I would like to announce one of our major courses of Tibet House, as Bhaskala already mentioned about Nalanda Diploma course and the Master's course. And I'll go a little bit explicit. After successful launch of ongoing Nalanda Master's course by His Holiness Dalai Lama on 2016, we felt, especially our director, we felt that there is a genuine need in the modern world to introduce the rich legacy of Nalanda tradition in a systematic and comprehensive way, delivered through a shorter duration courses. So therefore, we introduce Nalanda Diploma course in Buddhist philosophy. In short, we call it NDC in 2018. The first and second batch has been successfully graduated in 2019 and 2020, and more than 1,200 from 44 countries across the world have benefited from these two batches of Nalanda Diploma course. So this year, we also are delighted to announce the third batch of Nalanda Diploma course. So therefore, the registration is open, and it was opened on 1st May 2021, will remain open until 31st August. And the teaching will commence from 1st August 2021. And our teacher will be our director, Geshe Dojit Amdullah. So those of you who are not familiar also with our our director, our teacher. I would like to give a brief bio of him. So Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul is a director of His Holiness, director of Tibet House Culture Center of His Holiness Dalai Lama since 2011. So he served as an interpreter and translator of His Holiness within India and abroad. He is one of the chief editor and co-author of scientific, philosophical, Buddhist, and secular books with a prominent professor in UK and USA, as well as with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So these books are being used as a center and institute all over the world to study more thoroughly on Buddhist philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, and science. So he has translated many important Buddhist philosophy texts. And his profound knowledge of science and interaction with the world-renowned physicists give him a unique ability to teach Buddhist philosophy with the modern twist that many of non-students appreciate. So those of you who are interested in joining NDC courses, it's a 10-month course, so you can register. And I'll send you the link in your emails. So the teaching will commence, as I mentioned, it commences on 1st August, and to provide 75% scholarship in the course fees to monastics and students, while participants from NDC, NDC2, and NMC1 can avail 50% scholarship on this course fees. So I'm so sorry I took lots of time, and without further ado, I would like to request Bhaskala to proceed the session, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Domala. I think it's time for Venerable Legtsokl to take over. Welcome back, Legtsokl. And looking forward to your precious teachings.
Thank you, Domala. And thanks to all the staff at Tibet House and Legtsokl for organizing these talks. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Although I'm a little intimidated because at Tibet House, usually the speakers are great scholars, great Larampa Geshes like Geshe Dorje Damdul and other very senior monks from the Drepung Losele and Dialectic School and other institutions. So I'm just, compared to them, I'm just a very junior, kind of ordinary monk guy studying at Sarah, doing my best. But you know, I have given quite a few Dharma talks and led courses in India, but mostly it's because, you know, if I was Tibetan, there's no way I would be a main, you know, kind of teacher at Dharma centers in India, because, you know, in the Tibetan community, there's so many learned geshes and monks and practitioners and scholars that have, you know, much more qualities than me. So one of the main reasons I'm kind of, you know, giving many talks and courses in India is just because I'm fluent in English and also have some education in Buddhism. And many of the people who are interested in Dharma in India are, you know, speak English, right, are English speaking in other countries. So that's kind of why I ended up in this kind of position of being a teacher. And Bhaskar said I'm kind of gathering a following or something. I don't think so, and definitely it's not by my intention. Like, I don't have intention to put myself forward as a teacher or to have students, or, you know, I don't consider anyone my student. So whenever I can to give Dharma talks, I always consider the audience just my Dharma brothers and sisters, you know, fellow sentient beings on this earth who are also like me, seeking to have happiness, seeking to reduce and be free from their suffering and problems a little bit. So if I can help you all do that in any way, I'm very happy. But definitely by giving, you know, explaining some of the Buddhist teachings to you all, it's very helpful to me, to try to get, you know, the ideas more clear and make new connections I hadn't seen before, and also to come up with new doubts and questions, largely due to the questions that the audience asks. So that helps me learn, right? So together, it's like we learn, you know, together, the learning process. So please don't see me as your teacher and you as my students or something like that. We're all just Dharma brothers and sisters here to learn about and try to practice the Buddhist teachings. Yeah, to the degree of our interest takes us. I wonder, could I ask Dromala or the staff there at Tibet House, could you, I think you have these four of us pinned, so we can only see the four of us on grid view, but I'd like to see more of the audience, because that's kind of helpful when I'm talking to see. So if there's a lot of heads kind of nodding off, falling asleep, then I know I have to do something different, right? Okay, great. So the plan for today, we have about, what, an hour and 15 minutes left. So I should leave at least the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes for questions. So that leaves me with a little less than an hour here, or to give my presentation. So actually, I did make a PowerPoint presentation, which is very uncommon for me. I don't usually make PowerPoints, but I thought because we have to go through quite a lot of points kind of today. There's a couple lists, list of 8 leisures and a list of 10 endowments. And so I thought it'd be helpful for you all to be able to see those, as well as hear me say them. So I've made some PowerPoints. And then also from the first talk of this series by Geshe Dorje Damdol 1 week ago, Geshe-la mentioned at the end that if I could maybe go through the 4 greatnesses of the teachings, which is kind of outlined in the Lam Rim. So I've made a list of those too, and I'll go through those at the beginning. All right, so the main talk today will consist of, first, the 4 greatnesses of the teachings, of the Lam Rim teachings, and then the presentation of this topic. It's called the precious human rebirth in general. But there are quite a few other kind of points that come in at the beginning of the Lam Rim, so I'll try to cover some of those also. And then, as one member of the audience asked last time, if there'll be some meditation, we'll learn how to meditate as part of this course. I'd like to emphatically say yes, we will. Definitely during my sessions, I'll try to do some guided meditation during each session. So we'll fit that in today. So that'll all be part of the main part. But generally, because this is the first session I'm leading as part of this series, so I'd just like to tell you how kind of usually I lead a session. So usually we start with a motivation at the beginning, focusing our mind, focusing our attention, preparing, and thinking about why are we here? Why are we engaged? Why are we here for this session? Why are we, what's our long-term goal for ourselves and in relation to other sentient beings as being part of this session? Yeah, I don't know. I can still only see these 4 grids. There's something we could do so I could see more people in the audience, or because I have it on grid view on my screen, but I don't know. I can only see these 4. Not that Bhaskar and Droma and Bardo are boring, but it'd be nice to see more people too. Okay, so yeah, so we'll start each session in short though. We'll start with the motivation, and then do the main part of the session, and then dedicate at the end. Right, those are the 3 main parts. As part of the main part of the session, I'll give a talk. Then we'll do some guided meditation. We'll do some meditation together, ask you to think about some things, and then we'll have question and answers, right? Okay, so let's start with the motivation, right? So first, wherever you are, so motivation means we have to sit and think about, right, our motivation. So it helps if you sit in a kind of meditative posture. If you're on a couch or a chair, of course, that's fine. But do try to sit upright, because especially if we're tired, there's a tendency when we try to meditate, we just fall asleep instead of actually focusing our mind on anything. So we don't want to do that. So it helps to sit upright. Have your legs comfortably planted on the floor. If you are sitting on the floor on a cushion, that's even better. And sit in the full lotus or half lotus posture. And then make sure your spine is erect, right, and straight. So it helps to rock back and forth, forward and back, and side to side, to find a place where your torso is balanced, your spine is erect. But don't strain the muscles of your back or anywhere in your body. You want to have you're sitting upright but relaxed, so your weight can just settle directly down onto your pelvis and thighs. And then have your hands in your lap. Usually in this tradition, we put our right hand on top of the left and touch the thumbs, kind of like that. And then just rest it in your lap in front of your belly button comfortably. But if it's more comfortable just to have your hands like on your knees, palm down or palm face up or whatever, it's also okay. But this is called the mudra of meditative equipoise, right? So it's considered the best way to hold your hands, the best mudra for generating good concentration, which is what we want to do right now, right? Because we probably, for here in India, I guess most of the audience here in India, I think, it's in the middle of the day. So we've been doing all kinds of things all morning, probably. how to think about all different things. So we want to let go of thinking about everything else outside of this session and this present moment, right, for the time. So it can also help. Take a few deep breaths, relax. If your mind is very racing, thinking of all kinds of things, it might help to close your eyes. Usually we meditate with our eyes just relaxed and half open. Okay, so I won't say anything more about the meditation technique for now. Just try to focus your attention. Well, I guess I will say one more thing, right? The main thing is to focus your attention on an object of meditation. Right? So there's many different things that can be an object of meditation, but a good place to start with our breath, right? So just try to observe your breath. Just breathe naturally and just try to be fully aware of the process of breathing just for about 30 seconds or 1 minute. When you see your mind thinking about other things, try to notice that and just think, oh, I can think about those things later. For now, I'll just try to focus on my breath and bring your attention back to observing the breath. Okay, so then having focused our mind on our breath a little bit, now we use that same kind of, there should be some increased power of attention, right? We kind of increase, the more we focus our mental energy on one object, the more power we have to analyze or perceive that object vividly. So now use that focus of attention that we've directed, generating by looking at the breath, to analyze or to think about this question: why am I here? And as part of this session, why have I joined this session on the Lam Rim? What are my short-term aspirations or goals? Like in the short term, what do I want to get? What do I want to achieve by participating in this course in general, and especially in this session today? So you might think about, some problems, maybe feeling anxious lately, or have been feeling lonely, or maybe you just generally want to learn more about the teachings. But then, well, why do you want to learn more about the Buddha's teachings? There could be all different reasons in the short term, but then also extend the question about why am I here into the long term. What are your long term goals and aspirations for being part of the course? So generally, all of us, we want to be free from suffering. We have problems, we have challenges, we have painful experiences. We've had in the past, have some maybe in the present, and likely, very likely, almost definite, we'll have in the future again. So how to reduce the kind of suffering we experience, problems we experience, and especially what we contribute to our own suffering from our mind, from the side of our mind, right, from our side. So how can I reduce my own problems and suffering? Can this course, can this session contribute to that? If it can, may it may it do so. And then also we want to be happy and well, right? So we can think about those more long-term goals for ourselves. So thinking like something along the lines of, by participating in this course, may I be free from different kinds of problems I have, and may I create causes for well-being and happiness. And then also don't restrict your motivation just to yourself. Try to extend it to others. By participating in this course, somehow may it similarly be beneficial, not only for me, but for people in my family, my husband, wife, parents, children, my neighbors, friends, and then not only for people whom I care about, but even for strangers, other people I don't know about. So we can extend, and then we can also think not only in this life, but in this life and also future lives, and from life to life. We can extend our motivation out in terms of number of people that we're considering, and also in terms of the time scale and the level of well-being and happiness we aim to achieve. Okay, so take a few moments and just try to generate your own motivation by thinking about, why am I here, and what are the reasons, what I hope to achieve, accomplish by being part of this session. And try to generate a very positive reason. Okay, so that's something we'll work on in future sessions, more generating more and more powerful, vast kind of motivation. So, but it's important to generate a positive motivation at the beginning of any session, because whatever activity we engage in, whether it becomes a virtuous activity or a non-virtuous activity or a neutral activity, largely depends upon our motivation, why we're doing that activity. So it's very important at the beginning of any activity and any day, and especially a Dharma activity, to generate very clear positive intention for engaging in that activity. Okay, so then the next thing I want to do is just, we'll recite the Buddha's name mantra 3 times. Tayata Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Soha, because this is, basically a Dharma talk, a Buddhist talk. So it's important to honor and remember and also request the blessing of the founder of these teachings, Shakyamuni Buddha, at the beginning, especially since this is one of the first sessions of the whole course. So if you like and you're familiar with, especially if you have faith in, although none of those are prerequisites for the course, then you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front of you briefly, and then think of his qualities, whatever inspires you about the Buddha or gives you faith. And then we'll recite the name mantra. Sorry, I didn't type it out, so I don't have it to show you all, but I think most of you know. So it's Tayata Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Soha. Right? So I'll just chant it 3 times. You can chant along at home, or just listen and contemplate, and go for refuge if you like. When we imagine the Buddha is very pleased with us and agrees to guide us in our teaching and practice this session. Okay, so that's the preliminaries. So now the actual session, then I want to start with, why don't we look at just, so I've put together some of the Lam Rim outlines, some outlines from the Lam Rim. And so I'll share my screen with you, see if this works. Hold on, first I better go to my, have to make sure the PowerPoint and the other thing is open in my WebEx. And I have to start a slideshow. From the beginning. Okay, should work now. Oops. But I'm not sure if I start the slideshow on PowerPoint, then it takes out my whole screen and I can't get back to WebEx. So see if this works. Try to share screen first and then start the slideshow. You are sharing Microsoft PowerPoint. Share content. Okay, PowerPoint. There. We optimize. Window.
Galaxy
Wait. Hello.
Galaxy gap la gelagi PowerPoint on chini shower ani minimize chine gela dunla blank chido gap la PowerPoint on chini shananda ani dila shargir kila chiksi da
PowerPoint on general.
now
Yeah.
minimize mana wache on chini sharana yes
Let's not.
no
Stop sharing the temple. No. Okay. Okay. Did Can you see?
no kila yeah we can see
Also, so now I want to try to start the. Okay. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, now you see. Great. Okay. So, Ngari Gotsaling, Tibet House Lam Rim, some outlines. So this is not all the outlines, just a few. Okay, so, but the first thing, so I wanted to start, this is kind of a review. Well, these are the first 4 main points. So exposition of the stages of the path to enlightenment. So Lam Rim means the graduated path. It's a way to present all of the Buddha's teachings as a graduated path, as a path for one person to meditate on different things that the Buddha taught in an orderly way. So there's kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's like a path that gradually leads to enlightenment, just like a staircase kind of gradually leads up, say, a mountain. There's nice stairs built into the mountain. Then the top of the mountain is enlightenment, and we're kind of somewhere down towards the bottom, probably in the middle if we're lucky. Then we gradually, climb the stairs up. So, so the thing is, because Shakyamuni Buddha, of course, lived over 2,500 years ago here in India and taught throughout the Ganga River Valley. But during the Buddha's life, and the Buddha taught for about 40 years, of course, but during the Buddha's life, the Buddha taught many different, he would basically wander around, living in different, in Magadha kingdom, sometimes in Kusambi or Vaisali. And he would live in the different kingdoms around northern India at that time. And so taught different audiences. And because the Buddha always teaches an audience what is going to be most beneficial for that audience, of course, as the Buddha is teaching to different groups of people, he's giving very different teachings according to the needs of those people, the questions that those people have, the challenges people are facing in that particular time. So then when at the end of Buddha's life and afterwards, when we try to compile all of the Buddha's teachings, we have very different explanations of different things in different ways that it's difficult to see how they all fit together as a path. It's difficult to figure out what to practice first, what to do in the middle. You know, the Buddha's given all this different advice. Well, among all that different advice, what do I do first? Or, you know, if I have a big problem with anger, you know, exactly which advice do I use in relation to anger? If I'm, you know, have a lot of anxiety or something, well, what do I do in relation to that? Or if I want to know about, well, I don't know, how to understand samsara. What is samsara? What do I, you know, where do I find that information? So the Buddha's teachings are all kind of scattered around. Annotation request. I think during annotation, I think I'll decline. I'm not sure why someone would want to annotate my PowerPoints. Okay, so the Lam Rim is a way, the graduated path. Lam means path, Rim means graduated. So it's a way of organizing all of Buddha's teachings as a path of practice for one person. So there's a clear beginning, and then you meditate on this topic, and then the next topic, and then the next topic, and then the next topic, and finally you'll achieve enlightenment. So within 2 months, we all hope to become enlightened. Of course, that's probably not realistic, but at least within 2 months during this Lam Rim course, we hope to get an idea of what are the progressive stages of contemplation, things to think about and meditate on that will lead us to enlightenment. So yeah, so that's kind of the basic strategy of the whole Lam Rim and why it's a unique way of presenting the Buddhist teachings. And as Geshe-la explained in last talk, it's a way of organizing and presenting the Buddhist teachings that had never really been clearly done before the time that Lama Atisha, oops, okay, so how do I go back here? I haven't figured that out. Oh, there, great. Before Lama Atisha went to Tibet and composed the first Lam Rim text, which is a lamp for the path to enlightenment, right? That's the first kind of Lam Rim. So in a way, a Lam Rim is a way of presenting the Buddhist teachings. In another sense, the Lam Rim is a kind of genre, right, of texts. So there's a lot of different texts which belong to this genre, this way of presenting the Buddhist teachings. So the first of those is a lamp for the path to enlightenment by Atisha. And then there's many later ones. The longest and most famous of them is called The Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. In English, Lam Rim Chenmo. It's by Lama Tsongkhapa. And there's a middle link Lam Rim, a shorter version of that by Lama Tsongkhapa. And then there's many shorter Lam Rims by other famous Buddhist masters. It's mostly popular in the Gelug tradition. Sorry. Okay, so I saw there's a question in the chat, I think, or some comment. But okay. Would you suggest me any Tibetan text that I can refer to during your teaching? I can read Tibetan text. Yes, maybe we can send out later. Marti, there's a Marti Lam Rim, a Marti Lam Rim subject. Or, I don't know, what's another one? Dutsi Ningbo Lam Rim, it's a good one. Anyway, maybe we can send out links or something later. But while I'm in PowerPoint, I'm kind of nervous about clicking any buttons. So, all right. So there's many different Lam Rim texts. Yeah. Well, I can send out some outlines. Like, so there's Lam Rim texts and then Lam Rim outlines, right? So I can send out some other Lam Rim outlines in Tibetan and English. Maybe we can send out by email later on. Anyway, we have a lot of time, right? So, but there's first four major outlines of the Lam Rim. So this is these four. The first one is to demonstrate the purity of the teachings, source, right? The source of the teachings. So where did these teachings come from, right? If the teachings came from a bad source, then they're not going to benefit us much. So we need teachings that came from a pure source. So of course, the ultimate source of all of the Buddha's teachings is the Buddha's enlightened mind, right? The enlightened mind of a fully enlightened person, right? Shakyamuni Buddha in our case. So, so to demonstrate the purity of the teachings, source, the greatness of the author, right? So that's why in the last talk, Geshe Dorje Damdol spoke a lot about Lama Atisha and the qualities of Lama Atisha, because he's, of course, there's an unbroken lineage from Shakyamuni Buddha down to Lama Atisha. In fact, well, I won't say too much about that now. If you have questions about it, I can say more later. But yeah. So the whatever teachings we're studying and practicing, they should be things that have been taught by not just like the chaiwala on the corner or your auto rickshaw driver or, you know, I don't know, some angry neighbor or something like that. That advice might help a little bit, but won't lead you to enlightenment probably. So if we want to achieve enlightenment, we need to engage with, study, contemplate teachings that are taught by an enlightened being and people who have, you know, and then people who have inherited and developed realization in their own mind of the lineage of those teachings. So from Shakyamuni Buddha, there's an unbroken lineage of realized masters down to Lama Atisha. And then you can think also from Lama Atisha down to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Right? There's also an unbroken lineage of highly realized beings. So that's also why Geshe-la spoke about the qualities of His Holiness last teaching, and it is true. I mean, being alive now when we're able to meet and receive teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama is really not very different from being alive and being able to receive teachings from Shakyamuni Buddha himself 2,500 years ago. But largely it's because we don't realize how incredible that opportunity is that we don't make the most of it, right? So, but we can fix that. Okay, then the next outline is to generate respect for the instructions, the greatness of the teaching, right? So that's what Geshe-la asked me to just speak about today. There's 4 points in there. So the greatness of the teachings in the next slide, that's what I'll talk about. But just to cover what's going to come later, then there's a lot of advice about how to listen to and how to explain this teaching that possesses these 2 aspects of greatness, the greatness of the author and the greatness of the teaching itself. I won't spend much time on that. We'll kind of skip over that. And then there's the main actual body of the Lam Rim comes in this 4 headings. How the disciples are guided by the actual teaching. Right? So and then within that, that's what we'll mostly spend our time on the rest of the course. Okay, so next slide. Okay, the greatness of the teaching has 4 points. I don't know, I hope my little box is not covering the title. Is it? Domala, is this box covering the title? You can see. Oh, great. Okay. Then the greatness of the teachings has 4 points. So the first is the greatness of enabling you to realize that all of the teachings are free of contradictions, right? So the first is this greatness here means like a quality, right? A good quality. Okay. Yeah. So one quality of the Lam Rim is it enables you to realize how all of the Buddha's teachings, right? Here I mean teachings, we mean the Buddha's teachings. How all of the Buddha's teachings are free of contradictions, right? If the Buddha said one thing, you know, early on, and then later on said the complete opposite thing, we might think, you know, what is wrong with this guy? Like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just kind of saying one thing here and one thing there and one thing there, and it's all contradictory, right? If people say a lot of things that's internally contradictory, we tend to think either they're lying or they're just confused or they just can't remember what they said before. And we don't trust the person, right? And that is a kind of a problem in the Buddhist teachings because the Buddha did say many things at one point and then said the very opposite thing later on, especially with regard to ultimate truth. Like, you know, in some teachings, the Buddha said there is a person. Well, generally the Buddha always said a person exists, but at other times the Buddha said there is no person that exists. Sometimes the Buddha said there is an inherently existent person that exists. And in fact, everything inherently exists or exists from its own side. And then in other sutras, the Buddha said nothing inherently exists. And then in other sutras, the Buddha said, well, some things inherently exist and some things don't inherently exist. So on the surface of it, I mean, even in one sutra, the Buddha, I mean, of course, the main morality the Buddha taught is, you know, to abandon the 10 non-virtuous actions, the first of which is killing. Right? The heaviest, most obvious non-virtuous action is the non-virtue of killing, especially a human being, right? It's known throughout the world. Killing another human being is like one of the worst things you can do. Maybe I should. I'll stop sharing for a second so you can see me again. Okay. Yeah. It's widely known one of the worst things to do in the world is to kill another human being. But in one sutra, the Buddha says to King Ajatashatru, he's the son of King Bimbisara, and he killed his own father in order to take over the throne, right? And then later on, he had incredible, intense regret about it, or he's on the verge of going insane or committing suicide. So he asked the Buddha, like, I think, yeah, he asked the Buddha, like, what to do. And the Buddha said, no problem. You should kill your mother. You should kill your father. There's these words in one sutra. You should kill your mother. You should kill your father. So that caused, this Ajatashatru to think, well, what can the Buddha mean? Because he sees there's a contradiction. He knows the Buddha teaches nonviolence, and yet he's telling me to kill my kill my mother and father. So what possibly could that mean? But through that teaching, he realized that in this case, by the mother and father, the Buddha meant your own afflictive emotions that are the cause of your suffering. You need to kill those. In order to be free from suffering, we need to eradicate the causes of suffering, right? So oftentimes the Buddha spoke in this kind of metaphorical way, symbolic way, using symbolic language, which on the face of it can look contradictory. But by understanding the Lam Rim, it helps us to see how there are actually no contradictions in the Buddha's teachings. It all makes sense as part of one path, gradually guiding to disciples, different kinds of disciples, different people with different needs and dispositions, leading them all to enlightenment. So now, if I share my screen again, what are we going to see? Great, we go right back to where we were. Okay, perfect. So, okay, so that's the first. The greatness of enabling you to realize that all of the teachings are free of contradictions. And I have to race through the last three, otherwise we're never going to get to precious human rebirth, right? Okay, so then the second quality is the greatness of enabling you to realize or recognize, I think there's a typo there, the greatness of enabling you to realize or to recognize all the scriptures as instructions, right? So what it means is, it helps us to see how to put all of the different texts, Buddhist texts, the sutras, which are the word of the Buddha, and then later commentaries by ancient Indian Buddhist masters, and then later Buddhist masters, how to put them all into practice by having, if we have this kind of overview of the map of how to practice, from going from an ordinary being up to enlightenment, and how all the different facets of Buddha's teachings fit in that path of practice. If we have that kind of map in our mind, then whenever we encounter any Buddhist text, we know where it fits in that path of practice, right? Yeah. So maybe I won't say more about that. And then the next, the greatness of enabling you to discern. I wonder, is there like a pointer here or something? Because my cursor is not. Oh, maybe I will try annotate. Use tools as you mark out. All right. Please bear with me. This is my first time using WebEx. So, okay. That looks okay. Okay, cool. There we go. So that's this one, check. This one, check. Okay, then third, the greatness of enabling you to easily discern the conqueror's main ideas. So here the conqueror is an epithet of the Buddha. And so it's the main ideas or the intent. The main ideas is a translation of Gompa in Tibetan. There's a lot of Tibetans in the audience. See, I can't really see the audience, so I'm not sure. But I can also throw in some Tibetan terminology here and there if that might help you. Because sometimes it is a little clumsy to translate some Tibetan terms into English. Anyway, so the third main quality of the Lam Rim is it enables you to easily discern the main intention of the Buddha. So what did the Buddha really, the main things that the Buddha wanted us to focus on and meditate on as part of the path? It's easy to discern that. You know what? I didn't really explain the second one right. Anyway, I'll go back. So the third one, though, it's easily to discern the main messages, the main things the Buddha was teaching. The Four Noble Truths, the refuge, the view of selflessness, compassion, bodhicitta, and so forth, by the Lam Rim. Otherwise, when we look at different sutras and commentaries, there's a lot of, as some of you have read those, there's a lot of lists of different things, and oftentimes they go into very great detail about, very particular things like, the kind of physical substances that exist in the world, the different kinds of realms that exist, and different kinds of karma that beings can create. So it's easy to get lost in a lot of details that aren't really the main things we need to focus on. So the Lam Rim really helps us to understand what are the main themes in the Buddha's teachings, the main things we need to focus for practice. So just back to the second one a little bit. The greatness of enabling you to recognize all of the scriptures as instructions. Yeah, really it means actually not only how to see how all different texts fit in the path, but actually how to take them into one's practice, right? So with a good understanding of the Lam Rim, then whatever we study in Buddhism, Buddhist texts, and I think you can apply it more broadly to other, the study of other philosophical traditions, other spiritual traditions. You know how to, it helps you to see how to take that all of that into a personal practice as part of your personal spiritual journey. Can say. Okay, and then the last one. The greatness of enabling you to automatically avoid grave misdeeds. Right, so here, this is kind of a, we've done that one too. So this is kind of a, well, it's kind of an exclusively Buddhist view, but we can also generalize it. So generally, when I'm, especially for an introductory level course like this, I try not to make things too exclusively like Buddhist, right? So a lot of the messages the Buddha taught, we can easily generalize them so they're applicable to someone practicing, Hinduism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam or any of the world's major religious traditions or any spiritual kind of tradition. So here, of course, in Buddhism, one of the heaviest or most grave misdeeds is considered abandoning the Buddha's teachings, totally giving up faith in. For a Buddhist person, of course, giving up faith, because the mark of being a Buddhist is you take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, right? So the heaviest, kind of one of the worst things you can do is to give up your faith in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. So that kind of thinking applies to any religious tradition, because generally they each teach that they are the exclusive kind of path to enlightenment or salvation. It's kind of a Christian term. But by understanding how the Buddhist teachings are non-contradictory, how all of the teachings can be taken as a path of one's own personal practice, then that all helps to generate faith and protect one from especially rejecting the Buddhist teachings outright or rejecting any aspects of the Buddhist teachings. So if people as studying and practicing in, for example, the Tibetan Buddhist lineage, kind of as we are, as this session is part of, then if we were to say, oh, the Japanese Buddhism is a total corruption of the Buddhist teachings, it doesn't have any valid teachings in that tradition, that would be a grave misdeed, right? Because there are actually, valid Buddhist teachings in the Japanese tradition, just for an example. So it's kind of talking about that. If by understanding the Lam Rim, it helps you see how all aspects of the Buddhist teachings are part of the path and not reject any of them. Okay, so that's that. That's those 4 points. Share my screen again. Okay, great. If you have any questions, we can come back later. But for another at least 15 minutes, then I want to get on to the next thing, precious human rebirth. Yeah. So in the Lam Rim, the main part of the Lam Rim, so you'll see I've skipped over how to hear and how to properly hear and explain the Lam Rim. But maybe just to say a word about that. The main thing is when we're listening to any spiritual teaching, is to be open-minded on the first hand, to recognize that there might be ideas that clash with our own, preconceived ideas, with opinions and ideas that we already have, and accept that and be open to reconsidering, what we think or what we believe. That doesn't mean we have to give up what we believe and just take on board anything anybody else says, but rather we should have an open mind and try to use our reason, our critical thinking, our reasoning to analyze, what's true and what's not true, and not. So on the one hand, we shouldn't just believe whatever any teacher teaches. Even the Buddha himself said, just like a goldsmith analyzes gold by cutting, rubbing, and burning, so you too should analyze my teachings and not accept them out of just faith for me, right? So similarly, we should analyze the Buddha's teachings and challenge it, be skeptical, and try to find exceptions to what is being said. We should actively try to disprove, actually, because if we really try to disprove what the Buddha is saying, and then we really make effort to try to prove that the Buddha is wrong and disprove what he's saying, and then if we find that we can't, then we come to really stable and profound belief. Otherwise, if we just say, yeah, that sounds right, that sounds nice, yeah, that's okay, I can believe that, then that doesn't really lead to a very unshakable understanding and faith in the Buddhist teachings or whatever body of knowledge we're learning about, right? So we should be actively skeptical. So on the one hand, we should be open-minded, open to hearing about ideas and explanations that maybe are not familiar to us or not comfortable for us even. But then we shouldn't just blindly accept or reject them. We should do so only based on reason and our own analysis. And then we should try to remember what we've heard, especially, so we can't remember everything we've heard, but if there's something that strikes us as relevant to us, as significant, as somehow interesting or inspiring or important, we should try to remember that, right? So after a session like this, it's good to spend a few minutes and just try to think through what you heard, what was said, and what thoughts arise for you, and try to remember those. And then try to, if there's something that we think might be valuable and useful for us, try to meditate on it, put it into practice. Right? So I really have to get through this presentation of Precious Human Rebirth, or we're not going to have time to meditate at all, because see, the clock is running down. Those are the main things, though, in relation to how to listen to the teachings. Be open-minded, be skeptical, try to remember what you've heard. Okay, so then within the main body of the Lam Rim, I think Geshe-la explained last time, there's basically three scopes, or there's three main sections, right? Well, actually, before I get to that, there's two preliminary topics, are how to properly rely upon a spiritual teacher, which really applies to people who are already Buddhist and already somewhat kind of experienced, and yeah, basically have gone for refuge and are already kind of decided that this is the right path for them. So because this is a very introductory course open to people of all different backgrounds, then we won't address that topic at the beginning. But the first topic traditionally is how to properly rely upon a guru or spiritual teacher. The second topic is the precious human rebirth, which I'll explain. So those are two preliminary topics. And then there's the small scope, which basically means it's the set of topics, or the topics that belong to the path of practice for someone whose main motivation is merely to achieve a good rebirth, right? So after they die, to achieve rebirth again as a human being or in a celestial realm, a Deva realm or something. And there are four main topics that belong to that. It's called right? The path for a person of sort of lesser capacity. So the main topics there are impermanence and death, suffering of lower realms, refuge, and karma. Anyway, we'll come to those gradually. And the second is the path for the beings of middle capacity. So that's more about the suffering of samsara in general. The 12 links to dependent arising, which I'll explain after a couple months. And then the three higher trainings, higher training in morality, concentration, and wisdom. And that's taught for beings whose aspiration, they aspire to be free from samsara overall. And then there's the great path, or the path for beings of the kind of greatest, most vast aspiration. And there the main topic first is Bodhichitta, or the mind striving for enlightenment. And then the 6 perfections of bodhisattvas, and with emphasis on the last 2, the perfection of concentration and the perfection of wisdom. So basically, the Lam Rim has these 3 scopes, which I went over last time. But there's these 2 preliminary topics: properly relying upon the teacher, which we're skipping over, and then precious human rebirth, which we're looking at right now. Okay, so then what are the main topics within this? Okay, go back to annotate. Let's go for deep blue instead. Okay, so there's 3 main topics. This is the real title is an exhortation. But can I move? Just moves that. Okay, an exhortation to take the essence. Annotate. Look under my box. The little box is over the. An exhortation to take the essence of this precious human rebirth. Right. So basically, precious human rebirth means this human life that we have. So the reason for looking at, basically this is a meditation on gratitude, right? Being grateful for this human life we have by recognizing how many worse states of being there are. What if I've been born as a hell being? What if I've been born in a war-torn country like Syria is now at the present time? What if I've been born in a place where there's chronic always disease and famine, and just finding the means of survival is incredibly difficult? Then I wouldn't be able to, join a WebEx seminar, a WebEx session on the Buddha's teachings. I wouldn't have the leisure to be able to sit and meditate and think about, what I want to achieve for myself in this life or future lives. My day-to-day existence would be consumed with just survival, just the basics of survival, for example. So basically, look at the precious human rebirth is an extended meditation on gratitude, being grateful for not being in different miserable or difficult circumstances that would make it impossible for us to engage with and practice the path to enlightenment. And then thinking about all the good fortune that we have to have so many supportive conditions that we are able to learn about and practice the path to enlightenment, and how rare a thing that is, and how it's not going to last forever. We just have it's like we have this small window of opportunity during which we can do something significant to get ourselves closer to nirvana and enlightenment, to get ourselves closer to being free from this continuing cycle of suffering that is samsara, right? So the end result of this, thinking about precious human rebirth and impermanence and death together, should be that we feel strongly motivated to make the most of this life, right? To practice. Okay, I probably should have had my screen share off while I was saying that, but I forgot. Okay, so what are we doing? Let's look at these 3 main points here. Identifying. Okay, so first is identifying the leisures and endowments. So this precious human rebirth, it's mainly qualified as having 8 leisures and 10 endowments. So the first thing is to identify what are the leisures and endowments. All right, and then the second thing is to contemplate the great potential that we have. So what can we achieve with this precious human rebirth? What is the potential it has? Right, only by recognizing its potential can we are we inspired to actually actualize that potential, right? To do something to what's another word? Realize, I guess you can say, that potential. And then the third thing is contemplating how difficult it is to obtain a precious human rebirth. So how rare and difficult it is to achieve, the kind of rebirth that we have right now. Okay, so next, it looks like to progress, I have to get off annotate. Okay, come on. There we go. Next slide. Okay, so the 8 leisures. I feel like, well, can you all see me while we're in this mode, share screen mode? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
We can see you.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, I was thinking in order to see me, I had to like stop share. Okay, then fine. We don't have to go back and forth so much. Great. So the 8 leisures are, there's 4 leisures. So here leisure means, so it's talking about 8 kinds of circumstances where we wouldn't have the leisure to be able to engage and practice any spiritual teaching, and especially Buddhist teachings. Right. So the first 4 are related to kinds of rebirth that would prevent us from practicing spiritual teaching, and the last 4 are related to, even if we're born as a human, different kinds of human states that would become an obstacle to us fully engaging with Buddhist teachings. Right. So the first 4, these kinds of rebirth, being reborn as a hell being. So having, if you know, from our last life when we died, if instead of being born as this kind of human being, wherever we be born on this planet Earth, if instead we'd be born in hell, you know, hot hell or cold hell, of course, because there's so much suffering in that condition, then it's impossible really to do anything to get yourself out of samsara. It's impossible to practice any path because there's so much pain, suffering. And then the second, hungry, if we've been born as a hungry ghost, because hungry ghosts, their main thing is they're hungry, right? They're afflicted with the pain of hunger and thirst, and they also experience incredible craving for food and water and shelter. So the main cause to take rebirth as a hungry ghost is that you have, you know, your mind is largely controlled by longing, desire, and attachment, craving, and that throws you into that kind of rebirth. So if you take rebirth as a hungry ghost, also, again, there's so much craving and attachment and suffering from scarcity. It's like being in a famine your whole life, right? That you can't give your attention to the spiritual path and meditation and so forth. And then the third one is animal state. Get back to annotate. Animal. So if you're an animal, we'll just look at the animals around you. I mean, are there any animals in the WebEx room today? No. Why not? Well, one, the animals don't know how to use the internet. 2, they wouldn't understand the language that we're speaking. And 3, even if we could speak an animal language, they wouldn't understand the ideas that we're talking about, right? Because their intelligence is limited. Even though sometimes it looks really nice, like might be, you know, to be a big, you know, a big bird soaring around high up in the sky and not have to walk everywhere. Or, you know, maybe to be a fish and just simply spend your time swimming through the water and eating other fish. If you think about, you know, the details of what that would mean, you know, to exist as an animal, as a fish, you're always afraid of other fish eating you, right? As a bird soaring through the sky, well, to get your food, you have to come down and like, you know, kill mice or, you know, go to the dump and like pick out people's leftover food and stuff like that. Not to mention when there's a storm, you know, wind and rain, you know, you just sit in your nest and bear it. You can't put on any extra clothes. You can't like, you know, turn on the heater or anything like that. So animals, they have a lot of suffering that we don't experience, but their main limitation is that mentally they're limited. They don't have intelligence. Like as human beings, we have incredible intelligence to think about and consider all kind of things. And then a celestial being, so deva. So if you're born as a deva, the problem is the opposite. You have the devas have intelligence, but they have so much pleasure that they just don't really see a need to do anything to get out of samsara. Like for devas, their samsaric existence is so pleasant. They have, you know, they don't have to work, they don't have to pay rent, they don't have COVID-19 pandemics, they don't, you know, lose their job, they don't have relationship problems, or, you know, they don't have to go to family reunions and everything. So Devas, it's like their existence is so pleasant that they have no motivation to practice Dharma. So you can see that in order to have the best conditions for practicing, Dharma, the Buddhist Dharma, or any spiritual path, you need kind of the right balance of a little bit of suffering, so that you see that there is a problem with this kind of samsaric existence, and you have a longing to be free from it, right? So you need a little bit of suffering, but you also need to have intelligence and enough leisure, means enough kind of comfort, to be able to direct your mind towards these questions, like, well, why did I take rebirth in the first place? What are the causes? What if I have anger? Why do I get angry again and again? What are the things I can do to reduce my anger, right? So you need to have this kind of balance of a little discomfort, and also a little bit of a lot of intelligence, and some freedom to think about and try to do something about the problems that plague us, right? So those are the four. These are the four states of. Well, they're actually states of no leisure, right? These four states, but because we're not in them, then we have the leisure of not being in those states. That's what they're called, 8 leisures. So as related to rebirth, right? Different kinds of non-human rebirths. And then the next 4 are all related to human rebirth. So even if we're born as a human being, if we're born as a barbarian, which means barbaric people, where there's no dharma, means born in a region where there's not only no Buddhist dharma. I mean, in a larger sense, what is dharma? What do we mean by dharma? My preferred meaning, there's different ways to characterize dharma, but I think the best one is it's anything that we do, or any teaching we can engage with, which goes against our afflictive emotions, right? The source of all of our problems in life is our afflictive emotions, right? Which means emotions and thoughts, such that when they arise in the mind, they disturb the peace of our mind. They destroy the peace of our mind. And they lead us into afflicted actions which are harmful to ourselves, and actions which are harmful to others. So the main three, called the 3 root poisons, are attachment, strong attachment, craving for, longing for things that actually don't ultimately bring us satisfaction. So like, typical things like money, craving for food, craving for praise from others or reputation, and so forth. And then another one is anger, being angry, where especially anger is such that we want to harm others, having the wish to harm ourselves, having the wish to harm others. And then those 2 arise from fundamental ignorance. So those are the 3 root poisons. This kind of ignorance is complicated, so I don't want to go into it now. But so if we're born in a place where there's no knowledge or teaching that goes against the 3 root afflictions, but rather there's only conditions and conversation and kind of socially accepted messages that increase attachment and increase anger and increase selfishness, then that's kind of a barbarian place, right? And there's almost no opportunity there to practice Dharma, because we can't meet Buddhist teachings or Dharma teachings. So then the sixth, where the Buddhist teachings are unavailable or where Buddha hasn't appeared, so this is more kind of an exclusively Buddhist one. Yeah, but you can think more generally, where there's no spiritual teachings, no enlightened being has appeared and given spiritual teachings, then in such a place it'll be impossible to practice a valid spiritual path. Then the 7th is where if we're mentally or physically impaired, so this means, say we're born with Down syndrome, or we have like very intense depression, or schizophrenia, or other kind of mental impairments, that mental conditions that basically prohibit us from being able to meaningfully engage with any spiritual path. Or also physically impaired. I mean, it's true. I mean, of course, someone who's deaf or blind, they can meditate, they can become enlightened, but it's more difficult, right? So if we're to the degree to which we're free from those kind of physical or mental impairments, we reflect on that, we can generate sense of gratitude for our good fortune, right? And then the eighth one is having instinctive wrong views. So if due to habituation in past lives, we're born in this life where we have very strong views that prohibit us from engaging with any spiritual path or the Buddhist path, then that acts as a big obstacle. Yeah. So if we're free from, so the degree to which we're free from any of these, then it's really excellent, and we can generate gratitude and a sense of our own good fortune for that. Mm. So generally, the purpose, one of the main purposes of reflecting on these topics of precious human rebirth is to lift up our mind, right? To make us feel good about, the opportunities that we have, and then make the most of them. Let's try escape here. All right, then next slide. The 10 endowments. Okay, let's go through these 10, and then I'll stop for questions. Then we'll see if we have time to meditate or not. Okay, so there's 10 endowments. So these are positive faculties that we do have, right? That make it possible for, again, us to engage with the spiritual path. So there's 5 related to ourselves and 5 related to others. 5 personal endowments and 5 endowments pertaining to or related to others. So the first is that we're born as a human being. Second, as we live in a central Buddhist region where there's Buddhist teachings available. The third, we have complete, whole, complete, and healthy physical and mental faculties. The fifth, we have not committed any of the 5 heinous actions. So these are things like intentionally drawing blood from a Buddha, killing an arhat, killing our mother, killing our father. So the ones the easiest, and causing a schism in the Sangha as the fifth. So, imagine in this life if you killed your mother, intentionally killed your mother or father in this life, one, you'd probably be, extremely afflicted with regret, as was, King Ajatashatru. But and also, in general, you'd probably be destined to take a very bad rebirth in your next life. So that would, just having that kind of heavy negative karma in your mind stream would be a big obstacle to being able to practice, but maybe not completely prohibitive. And then the fifth one here is having faith in morality. So having faith that it matters what we do. If we don't have any faith in morality, then it means like whatever we do, whether we lie to other people, betray other people, it doesn't matter. There's no as long as I'm not caught, or steal things, right? As long as I'm not caught, then there's no long-term repercussions. If we have that thought, then we don't really have an impediment to doing things which are harmful to other people. And then the more we do things that are harmful to other people, each time we create, negative imprints in our mind, create negative karma, and all that becomes an obstacle to generating, realizations on the path, to generating more, honesty, more caring about others, generosity, kindness, compassion, and so forth. So if we have faith in morality, then we lead our lives in a way such that we don't harm other people, and then it brings a lot of peace and satisfaction to our mind, and we have good relationships with our family and friends, and then that all acts as a basis for generating and generating positive qualities on the path. Okay, then, oops, I didn't want to do that. Go back. I wanted to get my little annotation thing. Okay. So then the next 5. The 5 endowments pertaining to others are, okay, so living where and when a Buddha has appeared. So we live in, human earth at this time. The Buddha has taught 2,500 years ago, and his teachings still exist, right? So that's the second. The Dharma still exists. So the second, well, the 7th and 8th here, right? The Dharma still exists, and the Dharma is taught now. So we have access to the Buddhist teachings. Then there are, Buddhist masters, people who follow the Buddhist teachings. They have generated some realization of it in their own mind streams, and they're willing to explain it and teach it to others. And then the last is that generally there's care for others. There's kindness in the world. So this especially refers to if we want to fully devote our life to, you know, spiritual practice or the Buddhist teachings as a monk or nun or, you know, some other kind of renunciate, then we can do so. And there are generous people who will support us in doing so. In general, even just like things like this session that we have right now, there's kind people like Bhaskar and Tenzin Dromala who organized a talk like this to make it possible for us to attend, you know, and the whole staff at Tibet House. And then there's so many different people involved in just bringing, you know, an event, making an event like this possible. So all the people are kind of, there's general kindness in the world such that people make the practice, engaging with and practicing spiritual teachings possible, right? If everybody just hated each other and did refuse to work with each other, then it wouldn't be possible, right? Okay. Then, annotations off. Next slide. So that is all the 8 leisures and 10 endowments. So I'll just zip through the last couple, the next 2 main headings. So contemplating the great potential of a precious human rebirth. So what is the potential that we have, you know, in this rebirth as a human being we have now? What can we achieve with it? So in a temporary sense, we can achieve, you know, well-being and happiness in this life for ourselves, for our family. We can increase the well-being and happiness of ourselves, our family members, you know, other acquaintances in this life. Also in next life, you know, we can purify negative karma we've created in the past. We can build up a great store of positive karma and take a good rebirth in next life so that we can continue the spiritual path in our next life. Then also we can create, we can achieve nirvana, right? Even in one life or in the succession of lives, we can achieve the state of peace, great peace, that comes from having eliminated this process of a rebirth, old age, sickness, and death, and then, you know, rebirth again and again through the power of karma and afflictive emotions. So that's samsara, and achieving liberation from that nirvana is, or liberation from samsara is nirvana. So that's another temporary goal. Oops, I think I went too far forward. That's another temporary goal. Here, the ultimate goal we're talking about is enlightenment. So we can also, I mean, it's possible we can achieve enlightenment in this life. Milarepa achieved enlightenment in one life. You know, everybody that achieves enlightenment eventually, and they have a last life, and they achieve enlightenment in that life. So even if we can't achieve enlightenment, full enlightenment in this life, at least we can work towards it. We can draw closer to it. And then the third thing, in each moment, we have great potential. You know, every, you know, think about if we're walking from, you know, wherever you are, if we all walk to, well, say Varanasi, if we all want to walk to Varanasi, we have the potential, each moment, we have a potential to move in the direction of Varanasi. You know, every take, it happens in one particular moment. So now each moment that we exist in this, you know, this human form where we've met a spiritual teaching, we have the ability to understand it, we have the ability to put it into practice or not. And each moment, if we put, you know, Buddha's teaching into practice, in each moment by being mindful, by being patient, by generating, you know, loving kindness towards others, by using our intelligence to think about what's the best thing to do in the situation, by refraining from harming others in each moment, then each moment we're coming closer to, you know, more happiness in this life, happiness of future lives, the well-being of nirvana and enlightenment in each moment. In each moment, if we're not mindful, and as our afflictive emotions automatically arise, we just let them arise. We just follow our selfishness. We follow our, you know, craving for what I want, you know, irregardless of how it affects other people. If we become angry and we just follow our anger without trying to be patient, then we waste that opportunity to come close to, you know, a long-term state of well-being and happiness, right? So in that case, in that way, then each moment in this life we have a potential to work towards liberation and enlightenment. And then finally, so there's not really time now to explain these in any detail. I'll just kind of mention. So contemplating how difficult it is to obtain a precious human rebirth. So how difficult it is to obtain the human rebirth. There's a famous, so first by analogy, and then in terms of accumulating the causes to take a rebirth as a human, and then in terms of the number of, it's kind of like probability, really, the number of other kinds of beings that exist in the world who don't have a precious human rebirth. So in terms of number, how rare it is, right? So first, in terms of analogy, there's a famous analogy that the Buddha taught in one sutra, where he said, imagine, okay, I'll come back to your questions in just a moment. But imagine there's a huge ocean, like the Pacific Ocean. In that ocean, there's one sea turtle swimming around. So that's us. We're like the sea turtle swimming around in the ocean. But this sea turtle, he's incredible, or she is incredible. She only takes one breath every 100 years. Right? So sea turtles, of course, they can't breathe underwater. They have to come up to the surface to take a breath, and then they dive back down. So imagine the sea turtle, they only take one breath every 100 years, means they only come up to the surface every 100 years. And then imagine there's a golden life ring, right? A golden yolk, actually, but it means like a ring that floats. So it's gold because it's very precious, but imagine it doesn't sink like a real golden ring would just sink to the bottom, but it floats on the top. So it's like a gold-coated life preserver ring, and it's just floating around on the surface of the ocean. And it's moving here and there, blown by the wind and swept by the currents, just randomly moving around the ocean. What are the chances that the sea turtle, when they come up, every 100 years for a breath of air, that they're going to put their head through that golden ring? It's almost impossible, right? But so the Buddha is teaching this as an analogy for us taking a human rebirth. Us taking rebirth now in human form is like from every 100 rebirths we take in samsara, most of them we take as held beings, hungry ghosts, or animals, mostly in the lower realms where there's no opportunity to practice dharma. But it's like once every 100 rebirths, maybe we take rebirth as a human being, right? And then, but then even we take rebirth as a human being, to meet the Buddha's teachings, right? To take rebirth as a human being at a time when the Buddha's teachings exist is even more rare. So remember that ring floating around the surface of the ocean is like the Buddha's teachings. So it's because Buddhas don't just appear and teach Dharma in every world system all the time, not because they have a lack of compassion or desire, but because the sentient beings don't have karma, right, to meet Buddha's teachings, because it takes a lot of merit to be able to meet. So in short, it's extremely rare to take rebirth as a human being in the first place, and then within that to meet and have the inclination. Like even think about the world now, planet Earth right now. There's 7 billion human beings on planet Earth, but how many of them are actually, many of them, they want to be good people. I mean, we wouldn't want to say most people don't even want to be a good person. Like most people, they do want to be happy. They want to be good people. They want, most people do treat, their family and friends with kindness. But there's very few that actually think about anything beyond this life, right? I mean, for us, how much do we actually think about, achieving happiness of future lives or liberation and enlightenment? It's kind of, we talk about it when we go to Dharma teachings, and then we forget about it once it's dinner time, right? So it's very rare actually to have a life such that we're actually continually involved in trying to create causes for not only happiness within samsara in future lives, but the happiness of freedom from samsara and ultimate enlightenment. Then in terms of causes, it's rare to take a human rebirth because it's difficult to accumulate the causes, because the main cause for taking rebirth as a human being is practicing pure morality. And in most kinds of existence in samsara, it's very difficult to practice morality. Like imagine you're an animal, like you're a bird, you're a really nice, sweet bird who has a beautiful voice. How do you practice not killing? Like you instinctively live off insects, right? So you're killing all the time. Yeah. And then in terms of number, So think about all the, the number of creatures who exist in the world. How many more animals there are than human beings? Among human beings, how many more human beings there are who aren't really, interested in a kind of spiritual path than those who are. So in that way, it's incredibly rare to to have a precious human rebirth. Okay, so I think I'll stop there because we're basically out of time. Let me just check. I think there's only one more slide actually. Yeah. So it's really important because we did in this course we didn't set out the topic of impermanence and death as a separate topic for a talk, but this contemplation on precious human rebirth only becomes really powerful when we do it together with the understanding of of impermanence and death. So there's just three simple things to understand here or to think about. One is that, first of all, this fortunate situation we find ourselves in now, where we're a human being, we have education, we have intelligence, we don't have to worry about food and clothing, we have supportive family and friends, and we've met this kind of profound spiritual teaching, Buddha Dharma, and we have some interest in it. This situation won't last forever, right? We're all going to die. This life inevitably ends in death, right? There's no question about that. When are we going to die? We have no idea, right? It's not certain that we'll live even another, day. Oops, sorry. It's not certain we'll live, another month, year. Even if we live another, years, it's not certain how many. So there's no question that this opportunity, this fortunate opportunity we have now, it won't last forever. And how long it'll last, we really have no idea. So it's important to take the essence of our human life now, like immediately, without procrastinating, without waiting. But then we might wonder, well, what is it? Sorry, I keep wanting to like draw something with the annotation and then I'm clicking. Okay, there we are. So then, so how do we take the essence? What is the essence of life? What is the most meaningful thing in life? A really good way to help us get some insight into that is to think about the actual time of our death. As we're dying, we naturally look back over everything that we've done in our life. Generally, it's commonly said, right? So, when we look back over our life, what do we want to see that we've done, and what are the things that if we see we've done, we'll be ashamed of, we'll have regret for, right? So, if we think about, at the time of death, what will be a benefit to me, then it helps a lot to see what we should do now, how we should live our lives now, right? But especially it makes clear things like physical possessions, like wealth, however much wealth we have, we won't be able to enjoy it. Maybe we can leave it to our family, our children, or relatives that will be behind. It'll benefit them, and that's great, of course. But it won't help us. We won't be able to take our credit cards with us like into the next life. Also, all of our possessions, our house, car, and things, obviously we'll have to leave behind. And the more we're attached to those things, the more difficult it will be for us to part with them, right? Even our body, the physical body that we so identify with now, will be separated from that at the time of death. So what will go into the future is our mind, right? So clearly it's our qualities of mind, positive qualities of mind that will be most beneficial at death. So the more we have loving kindness for others, that'll be incredibly helpful. We have compassion, for others. We have a sense of contentment with who we are, a sense of satisfaction for the way we've led our life, the way who we are as a person. That will, that will make our dying incredibly much more peaceful, right? And if we have a long-term positive goal in the future, if we have an aspiration to achieve liberation from samsara, to benefit all sentient beings by becoming enlightened, then that will bring an incredible sense of satisfaction to us. If we have some broad understanding of life and death and our long-term potential and have aspiration to achieve our highest long-term potential, that will be incredibly useful, right? And if we're free of regret, right? So if we've lived our life in such a way where we've harmed a lot of others, and then we look back, we feel a lot of regret, that'll be a big problem. Okay. Okay, so I'll stop there. Okay, stop annotation, stop sharing. Okay, I'm stopping sharing. Not everything, just my screen. I'll share everything else. Okay, so any questions? I think I saw something in the chat. Okay, yeah, my layout was on grid view. Okay, there's the mantra, great. Tibetan text I talk about. Okay, save your questions, yes. Okay, so here's a question from Casey. I'm not a Geshe-la first. You can just call me Legtsokl. Can you explain a bit about the difference between precious human rebirth compared to rebirth in a pure land? Yeah. So precious human rebirth is better than, well, a rebirth in a pure land. Yeah, that's a good question. Because also rebirth in a pure land, well, there's different kinds of pure lands, but the one you're thinking about is probably like Amitabha's pure land, or, every Buddha has their own pure land, actually, an enlightened environment. You know, yeah, so many different pure lands. Maitreya's pure land, Tushita heaven, and so forth. So, yeah, in a way, you could say rebirth in a pure land is actually a better place to practice Dharma than rebirth as a human, because there's actually a lot less suffering. You can continually receive teachings, day and night, and you're surrounded by other people who also are there to, to receive teachings and practice. So in a way, yeah, rebirth in a pure land, especially for certain kinds of individuals who, find it really difficult to bear the kind of suffering that we encounter as a human being, like, in the kind of circumstances we're in now, it's better to take rebirth in a pure land. And especially the more that the teachings decline and there's less access to, and it's more difficult to engage, if you're Buddhist, right, to engage with Buddhist teachings. The more there are stronger afflictive emotions, there's more deprivation, there's more conflict in the world, the more and more difficult it becomes in the world. Like, say, if global warming, climate destruction keeps increasing, after 100 years, it's going to be much more difficult to practice Dharma than it is now, right? So as things deteriorate in a world system, it does become kind of better to take rebirth in a pure land, to have access to, the opportunity to practice Buddhist teachings. But one reason the precious human rebirth is considered better is because ultimately, this is according to the tantric Mahayana Vajrayana teachings, right? To finally achieve enlightenment, you have to do so on the basis of a human body, actually, endowed with the elements and the winds and channels such that a human body has. So according to the Mahayana Vajrayana teachings, actually bodhisattvas in pure lands, they pray to take rebirth as a human being in order to achieve their final enlightenment, right? So that's one reason actually human rebirth is considered better. Okay, the next question here is from Niketa. You said that killing parents is a grave misdeed. Is this more than literal? Yeah, is this more than literal? It's just literal. Yeah, killing your parents is a grave misdeed. If I don't take care of my parents or make their life easy, am I not slowly killing them? That's a good question. Is this then a grave misdeed? Okay, yeah, very good question. So generally, our parents are some of the most powerful karmic objects. So whatever karma we create in relation to our parents, it's very heavy. So if we can, create good karma in relation to our parents by doing things to please them, taking care of them, making meals, helping to clean the house, calling them up regularly to talk with them, generally not disappointing, not upsetting their minds. When we speak to them, even if we disagree, to speak in a way that's respectful and affectionate. All of those things, we create incredibly powerful positive karma. If we do things that harm our parents, especially from just having malicious thoughts, to speaking in a way that's harsh and disrespectful, to I don't know, taking advantage of them or deceiving our parents. Those are all very powerful negative karma. So if we do the same thing with relation to like a friend or a neighbor, we create negative karma or positive karma, according to whichever example I gave. But the karma is not as heavy because it's our parents. They gave birth to us. They cared for us from the time we're an infant. They enabled us, everything that we do in life. They enabled us to do that, right? So they're incredibly powerful karmic objects. So we have to be very careful with the kind of karma that we create. But your question, if I don't take care of my parents or make their life easy, am I not slowly killing them? Well, I mean, you should try to make their life easy as much as you can and take care of them to the best of your ability. But, we're not Superman or Superwoman. We can't do everything. And even we can't always please our parents. I mean, our parents might have, different views that we just don't share. And so we can't please them. But we should, and we can disagree, but we should disagree respectably. So, but killing, really, you have to have, to make a complete karma of killing, you have to have the intention to kill, right? If you're walking along the road and you step on an ant accidentally, just because you don't see it, and you don't even know you ever stepped on an ant, it dies. There is some degree of the karma of killing, but it's not like you saw an ant and you're like, I hate you, ant, and I'm going to kill you, right? It's completely different kind of karma. So, no, I think in short, if, yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by if I don't take care of my parents. There's all kinds of degrees to taking care. It doesn't have to mean you don't have to kind of wait hand and foot on them day and night. You might live in a different city or something. Then taking care of them just means calling them regularly and showing that you care about them. Okay. Then the next, Venerable. In Buddhism, how are plants treated in terms of sentient beings? Yeah, in Buddhism, plants are not considered as sentient beings. They have, well, and so they don't have a life force. But there's a big problem because the way that life is used in Buddhism refers to like not what we consider, like in English when we talk about living beings, it includes plants, right? In Tibetan, there's no kind of equivalent term for that, right? So there's a solwang yuna, simjing in the cup, right? So it means if something has a life force, it necessarily is a sentient being or a Buddha, right? Or a Buddha, which is a person. So, but in Buddhism, there's great respect for plants, right? Like for example, the Buddha taught that we shouldn't unnecessarily harm plants. Like fully ordained monks, we're not allowed to cut plants, we're not allowed to pull grass, we're not allowed to, we shouldn't, substances that will harm plants, you shouldn't throw on like on the grass or something like that. So there's great reverence because obviously plants are a great source of life for us. If there's no plants, we don't have life, right? We can't survive. And when we harm plants, that harms other creatures' ability to benefit from those plants, right? So we should treat the plant world with respect and with care, and try to do things that nourish plants and the environment such that they sustain life, right? Okay, I know we're running over time here, so if you have to go, no problem, you can go. Bhaskar, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to, yeah, you said it is 12:40 already, so.
Yeah. Okay, I won't go far. I'll just try to, wrap up. Let's see, yeah, I'll wrap up now. If I translate Pure Land into Tibetan, what would it be? Dakshin. Dak is pure, land is Shin, Dakshin. But it's negative mind because they don't. Yeah, I think the Tenzin Yutok's question we'll just have to leave till next time. Yeah, I don't want to go too much over time. So just to wrap up, yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get to do any meditation together. Hopefully next time we won't have so much material to go through. But the way to meditate on this is just to sit quietly, focus your attention like we did at the beginning, and then just think about each of these different points of the of this presentation of Precious Human Rebirth. So on the one hand, think how fortunate we are to not be in worse conditions than we're in, not to be in a situation where we're starving, or not to be like, mentally or physically handicapped, not to be surrounded by, just people who are, terribly angry and full of affliction views. So we're surrounded by we have a lot of kind people. We have education. We have access to Buddhist teachings. How fortunate we are, and then how rare. Think about how rare this situation is. All the wonderful things I can achieve based on this rebirth, and then how it won't last forever. I'm definitely going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die, so I need to do whatever I can to make the most of this situation immediately. Okay, so why don't we dedicate, just let's pray by whatever merit, karma, and positive karma we've created during this session. May all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering, especially the global pandemic. And may all beings have every form of well-being and happiness up to full enlightenment. And then may all of our gurus, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama, have long, stable lives. And may true spiritual teachings spread throughout the world and in the minds of all sentient beings. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you all for your attention, and hope it's some benefit.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. On 26th of June, Venerable Geshe Damdullah will be back talking about Four Noble Truths. And then he'll continue that on the 10th of July as well. And Saturday, 17 July, Legtsokl will be back with us talking about karma. Thank you, everyone, on behalf of Narigetsokl and Tibet House for being here today. And would request all of you to make a silent prayer in your minds for the long life of Venerable Legtsokl and also for the fulfillment of his wishes. That's the minimum we can do for all the precious teachings that he has given us. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you. See you next
Where
week.
things are high lao ha. We don't do here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Legtsokl.
Thank you all.